Previously on the Game On podcast.
We like to start with where you sort of grew up and some of your juniors, but in doing a bit of research, you didn't play too much junior basketball.
No, because back in the day, there wasn't really like the talent identification programs that are around now. And I was because I was country Victoria, I was 6 hours from Melbourne, but I was closer to South Australia, 2.5 hours from Adelaide. And so, yeah, I just played in the, I obviously grew up in Murrayville in Victoria, but played in the Lameroo and District League with both netball and basketball. And yeah, I think we were just a little bit too rural to be discovered, to play a lot of junior basketball. And yeah, there wasn't any junior programs growing up. So when I was 9, I was playing with adults. I was playing with my mum. And so it wasn't until I was, 12 when I had a growth spurt, was playing the A grade. And yeah, mum and I won 5 premierships together, which was pretty special. That's one of the things I love about in the country is that you get to play with your parents, which is pretty cool.
That's an incredible record, Rach. Something.
And basketball wasn't offered all year round. It was just in summer. You know, we trained once a week, played once a week, and I grew up playing on outdoor courts. We didn't have an indoor gym. So yeah, it was pretty different.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome to Game On. My name's Pete, and once again, Malcolm, you're in the hot seat. You're back again for another week, but Rachael spawned there part 1 of our 2-part series with Rach, and we sometimes forget that the country provides and still does provide some very, very good players. Maybe not as much these days as they did once upon a time, but now, you look back on it and go, wow, there was a lot of players that came from the country.
I think purely because how society's changed, how farm sizes are now so much bigger, so there's less people. You're having the amalgamation of sides, etc.
Associations,
and that. So I think that's where the difference is, and you heard Rach there, she played at Lameroo, and I'm thinking immediately, I wonder if she played against Rockets and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And great chat and fantastic person. And as I made a point in there, great basketballer, better person.
Absolutely. Part 2 with Rachael coming up later on today, but let's get into it, mate.
Around the grounds.
All right, we'll kick off with the AFL. We'll start with Adelaide today. Adelaide's leadership group has been announced, mate. Any surprises or some thoughts on that one?
Farcical. Absolutely farcical. So you've got the captain, obviously, in Dawson, 3 vice-captains, Brodie Smith, Ben Keys, Riley O'Brien.
Yes.
You add Darcy Fogarty, Lockie Murphy, Wayne Miller and Mitch Hinge. 8 players out of 40 in your leadership group. Meetings might finish by midnight. Look, 5 is ample. Mm-hmm. It's another thing on today's society in everything that everyone's got to have a title. Mm-hmm.
For me,
ridiculous.
I can sort of see why, say, Brodie Smith, Malera. Lockie Murphy was an interesting one for me, but again, maybe the age profile that they're looking for to guide that group. But you're right, 8 does seem excessive. Does that mean that there's too many, and this is probably right up my alley, too many cooks and not enough chefs?
Oh, by a mile. And I'm sorry, out of that, for mine, you've got Riley O'Brien, Lockie Murphy, and Ben Keys. It's the great try. Well done. Mm-hmm. Good try. For me, no, let's go for elite. Let's try and win a bloody premiership, not let's just try and for a good try and competitive.
Absolutely.
As a Crows supporter, and don't worry, I'm going to tee off on the Redbacks in a few minutes as well.
Yep.
Pretty disillusioned out of that. I just think it's ridiculous.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And
look, and I do want to go on further. There are two players, and unfortunately I can't name them.
Mm-hmm.
Both played AFL football and SANFL football, who retired early. One of them I ran into at 9:45 one Tuesday night. What the hell are you doing? He said, I've got home from bloody training yet. That contributed massively. Those two players would still be playing SANFL footy if there was more common sense regarding training and meetings.
Yep. We will. All right. We'll stay with Adelaide. Just a little bit of a fun exercise here of 5 to 7 players under the age of, say, 23, 24 for Adelaide. Came across a bit of an article here via SEN, and I reckon it was Daniel Menzel who put together his top 7 sort of Adelaide players, starting with Luke Pedler, Jake Saligo, Daniel Curtin, which I think was interesting considering he hasn't played a game yet. So we'll hold fire a little bit on that one. Riley Thilthorpe, Max Michaelani, Josh Rochelle and Isaac Rankin. It's pretty solid 7 really when you think about it. And, you know, without putting too much pressure on Curtin, you know, and I've sort of said this a couple of episodes back with Max Michaelani down back, could be, you know, the dynamic duo down back for quite some time if everything goes all right. So some big raps on him.
Yeah, there is, and there's also some others. I rated Dowling from 2 years ago. I at North Adelaide. I like what he offers.
Yep.
There's good reports on Edwards as another good size midfielder, which obviously they lack a bit.
Yep.
So yeah, look, I do think in that regard there is plenty of good young, up and coming talent.
It's exciting for the Crows when you sort of list off those 7 players and then you've added another couple there, which I was hoping you might give us a little insight in being the Crows supporter. But obviously, you know, Isaac Rankin, Josh Rochelle, I think they're the dynamic duo down forward. Curtin and Michaelani could be the dynamic duo down back. Very interesting, Riley Thilthorpe. All reports, and we'll talk about this one now, is that obviously the internal trial game was played over the weekend and he looked like he was moving pretty well and playing pretty well, but I know you're pretty strong on trying to get him into the ruck, not up forward. So
yeah, it's a combination, but personally I think ruck's still Adelaide's biggest weakness.
Yep.
And that's also compounded. For mine, you've got Riley O'Brien, who should be a fringe player. He's in your leadership group. I want to see Strawn, I think it's either his 4th or 5th year on the list, be given an opportunity.
Well, the opportunity he did get a few years ago looked quite capable, so that's probably the one question mark for me as well. But
let's just do know from some of the players which one they'd rather ruck off.
Fair call.
And it ain't Riley O'Brien.
Fair call. All right. And Lukey Pedler's probably a good one for me. I thought he had a breakout year last year, and I reckon he's only going to go from strength to strength. He sort of reminds me a bit of Dawson, you know, got that cool, calm, collected ball movement.
There's a little bit of similarities of McIntosh.
Yes.
He probably kicks more than Macca. Macca was more break open with a long handball, but the body strength and through a pack. There are a little bit of similarities.
Absolutely. Well, exciting times ahead. All right. We've done Adelaide. We've got to do Port Adelaide. Obviously, trial game. We'll start off with their trial game, their internal trial game at Alberton Oval, unveiling the new state-of-the-art centre. Got through relatively unscathed. A couple of little injuries that you'd worry about, but nothing that's going to affect them as the season gets closer. Interesting that Port Adelaide did play a fairly even both sides. You know, a lot of the clubs this year
I
have
admit
done...
I prefer that.
Yeah.
I don't sort of see the point of loading up on one. Now,
the possibles and the probables, yes.
And the Crows actually did that a little bit, and Curtin played in the possible. So not only is he standing Taylor Walker, which is fine, I like that.
Absolutely.
He's got to be exposed to that, but he's exposed to the better midfield in terms of the lack of the pressure of the ball being that bit cleaner to Walker than it would have been with the teams evened up with a little bit more realistic. So, yeah, I actually personally like the way Port did that better than Adelaide.
I agree. And
that's my own opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's why I bring it up in that you know, most clubs seem to have done a possibles v the probables, and this year Port Adelaide have gone the other way and gone, you know what, we're going to do matchup for matchup, and there were some exciting matchups there that I didn't watch all of it, but there are certain highlights that you saw and went, yeah, this is good for Port Adelaide. I reckon it's a great, great thing.
Well, why not have Rosie stand Butters or Rosie stand Jason Horne-Francis, etc.? I think that's far better than the three of them play together.
Spot on. All right, we'll talk about Port Adelaide's top 7 or so. We've got Lockie Jones, Ollie Lord, Mitch Georgiadis, Miles Bergman, Jason Horne-Francis, Connor Rosie, who just squeezes out of that age bracket by January, which is not very much, and Zach Butters. I think Zach Butters, for me, is going to be a Brownlow medalist from what I've seen so far.
I think if any of those three can be. I just think the world's, I know I go on about it, but for mine, I think that three is capable of just absolutely dominating the competition, jump aboard with us.
Yes. So. Exciting times for Port Adelaide, obviously, with those 7 players. Who's your must-watch? I know who you're going to say. It's going to be Horne-Francis. For me, it's Georgiadis. We haven't really seen a lot of him. I know injury is going to be, or has been the problem in watching him so far, but I reckon he's one that could have a breakout year, all being well.
Yeah, it's still a big thing to come back after missing so long.
Yep.
And all that. In time, look, I've got to be honest, I was at the game at Unley where he did his knee, and he's got himself to blame in terms of it wasn't just pure bad luck. If he'd been switched on, he dropped a chest mark because he was elsewhere in the mind.
Yes.
And then through that, he then twisted his body and was unlucky enough to do it in that way. But if he'd been switched on, it wasn't just one of the pure bad luck. There was a little bit more to it than that.
Fair call. All right. Say an overall top 7, as per the article here, Josh Rochelle, Thilthorpe, Michael Annie, Horne-Francis, Rankin, Butters and Rosie. It's a pretty impressive list. If you're sort of putting together almost a state side there, you'd want to see them all playing together, wouldn't you? That'd be fantastic.
It would be exciting.
It would
Although Butters is Victorian, I suppose.
Yeah, but if you do it purely on, just playing for a South Australian club, it would be very, very interesting.
But that's probably, I think the other, and Rochelle's Victorian too, isn't he? Yeah. Yep. So I was thinking that's a bit stronger than what we've been on a potential state of origin side of things. But mind you, Rosie Rankin, Horne-Francis suddenly probably gives us a bit more strength than we've been for a while.
Absolutely. This might be controversial for me to say, but bring back the AFLX and put these guys together. It would be fan-bloody-tastic, wouldn't it?
Oh, that AFLX, yes. We're still a reigning premiers in that.
We are. We'll talk about that one a little bit later. Obviously, Port and the Crows with their internal trials last week. This weekend, it's pre-season showdown. What are your thoughts on that? I'm of two minds.
Yeah, it's match similar. I still don't take too much out of it. I just want to get through injury. Like Hawthorn's the one who've been, hit from pillar to post with 3 serious injuries from last weekend.
You've stolen my thunder a little bit in how much injuries can wreck a club's season really at this time of the year. And is it a case? And I did hear actually talking about Timmy G. I did hear him talking. I reckon it was on one of the radio stations about, or via Port Adelaide website about how it's important that players still do go at 100% because that's when you don't get injuries, if that makes sense, because you're bracing yourself for it. But if you're trying to preserve yourself, generally that's when some of those injuries can happen. And I think you alluded to it with Georgiadis a little bit as well, potentially.
Yep.
All right, we'll leave the AFL there, mate. We'll move on to cricket. Australia heads over to New Zealand. What do we expect from this mini 2020 tour?
Admittedly, I'm waiting on a call back trying to find out because I just rang a painter mate today on something different, and Spencer Johnson was on the same flight as him to Melbourne. Wondering if Spencer Johnson is then flying in New Zealand, if he might be in the squad for the second and third game, how they mix that up. I'm just not sure. So I'm hoping on a call before the end of the show or otherwise, even before we record tonight. That side of things. Yeah, so not sure there. Look, again, personally, I'd much rather be playing a warm-up game before the test matches. I couldn't care less about 3 Mickey Mouse 2020 games.
I thought you might say that, but I just thought I'd throw it out there in that obviously world cricket at the moment needs a bit of a boost.
It's not warm-up, it's games.
And New Zealand, basically hosting a third South African team, they get the A grade of Australia somewhat. Good for them, obviously, to host Australia at pretty much full strength. All right, it's the Mickey Mouse comp that we're talking about, but Still important for cricket nevertheless. All right, mate, we'll move on to the Redbacks. I know you want to throw down the rulebook rant nice and early today, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, I want to go a few angles here in terms of I'm now 61. So I've worked it out. I've been a regular at Shield games now for 49 years. I think overall, South Australia, really in that time, there's only been a couple of times where we've actually expected to win. We've hoped to win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go into this game. On Saturday, we get into a position we are 3 for. Carey and Lehman batting. Queensland have tried to bounce Carey for a while. That hasn't worked. So they've gone for the bowl wide outside off stump to either an 8 on the offside field or 7 on the offside. Now, Carey played a couple of rash shots, and I'm just thinking, for goodness sake, Alex, just rein it back. Bat ugly here for a while. It doesn't matter if we only get 30 runs off the last 20 overs of the day.
Yep.
They're not going to get... Honestly, there were 3 overs bowled where both batsmen could have come and sat with us in the bodyline bar because they weren't going to get out. They were just way outside off stump.
Yep.
It was, right, let's just try and frustrate one of these two out. Now, Jake did go down to speak to Alex at one stage, but for mine, it had to almost be down there and grab him by the throat.
Yep.
For goodness sake, pull your head in, bat, just bat. He then tried a lap shot, stepped in front of his and tried to flick it over the keeper's head to get out for 90. The predictable South Australian collapse then happens. We lose 6 for 8.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you just bat smart from that stage to get through. Now, the other player I want to really tee off on is Fraser McGurk. I would have actually gone up to him after his dismissal in the second innings and said, pack your bags, see you later.
Yep.
He is on 1 in the second innings. He played an average shot in the first innings. Yeah, I don't think he hit it. I think it was an average decision, but It was still a poor shot.
Yep.
In the second innings, he's on 1 and he charged and tried to slog Bartlett over square leg. It was bizarre. And for there's all this bit now. You've seen Root do it for England in this thing. It's bat with freedom. No, bat with a brain.
Yep.
Don't reinvent the wheel. All this, Bazball with England bullshit. Think back. Under Steve Waugh, the plan was to get over 300 runs in the day, etc. They're not reinventing the wheel, England. Think they're coming up with something new. Same thing with South Australia in this situation. We're 170 runs in front late on day 2, not day 3.
Yep.
Day 2, just bat and bat. And for mine, it comes back to, it's sort of South Australia. We're nice. We mean well. We're a good side to have a beer with, but lack ruthlessness. It was just so dumb. And I'm sorry, I've got to tee off on selection for across the year too. We've played Ben Menenti effectively as a batsman.
Yep.
Batting number 8.
When he was recruited for bowling, yep.
His bowling is marginally, it's only better than yours or mine that there's less loose deliveries.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more wicket-taking deliveries. If he plays, he bats in the top 6 or doesn't play.
Yep.
Harry Nielsen, yes, he made runs in Melbourne, but playing as the keeper batsman. Was he one of the best 6 available pure batsmen this game? I don't think so, personally. No. And I think it comes back, again, the internal problems in South Australian cricket. It's just immense frustration that I actually left Adelaide Oval angry. I've seen us lose enough times over years. But I want to see the side beat us, not beat ourselves.
Yep.
And effectively, we beat ourselves on the weekend.
Well, we do that more often than not, really, when you actually think about it, because as far as talent goes and the number of players that we've had cycle through that South Australian program, you would expect that there would have been a bit more success. So my question to you is it a case of that because there is obviously one day as T20s and all of this is all mixed in amongst each other, is that players are setting themselves for a Shield game but in a one-day T20 frame of mind?
Yeah, and so I think that's then got to come back with let's be stronger, better than that mentally.
Yep.
Mentally, Alex Carey was weak in terms of that way. And I'm a massive Alex Carey fan. He's the best keeper batsman in Australia by a bloody mile. But he should have made at least 100, and I actually think he should have made hundreds in both innings.
Yep.
This guy is good enough to be playing cricket for Australia purely as a batsman. Well, just keep batting. He could have made hundreds in both innings.
Yep.
I just want to see us, if he gets a real good egg and nicks it,
so be it.
That's fine.
Yeah, you've been beaten
but
by the bowler.
Not getting himself out as Fraser McGurk did. I just, and as I said, I don't get our selection. I think it's just lacked. There's a few things. It's in all areas. It's just bizarre. Like Tom Kelly gets picked to play in Melbourne, bats 4. Why not have played him this game and batted him at 6? Mm-hmm. I'm flabbergasted.
No, fair call.
And I'm furious.
My other question to you is stability. It looks like there's a lot of chopping and changing from what I can see from the the outer. You're probably a little bit more on the inner. It just seems like, you're almost 3/4 of the way through a season and you're still trying to find combinations. It's not ideal, and no matter what team sport you're in, lots of changes like that just keeps everybody unsettled. The
game Hunt opening with Carter in Melbourne, at one stage we were 1 for 2 after 9.4 overs. Now that's ridiculous. So they decide, right, we've got to try and score this game, so we'll open with Fraser McGurk.
Yep.
Now, I get that, but I don't understand why Jake Lehman, when he plays for East Torrens, either opens or bats 3. Why not play him? He wasn't making runs in the middle order.
Yep.
Why not try him opening earlier on? I don't. Yeah, there's just things. Lots of things don't add up.
Yep.
And yet again, it looks like we're going to win yet another wooden spoon.
Unfortunately, yes, South Australia losing to Queensland there after not quite a good start at all, but they did fight back. I'll give them that. Their first innings fight back was actually very, very good. But I'm scratching my head a little bit with you that they're probably up there with the 36ers at the moment that probably need a bit of a review from top to tail to try and work it out. And, with the amount of scouting that there is these days, you would have thought that there is some sort of game plan that they are playing to. And at the moment, it just seems a little bit haphazard. But again, I'm only an outsider. You are the cricket man here. And if you're frustrated, then, doubly frustrated, more than what I am. But anyway, let's move on. Elise Perry and Annabelle Sutherland. They are 2 of the most unbelievable women's cricketers going around, setting the records for the top 5 women's star Test cricketers over the journey.
Now, there's a bit of fun in this one where we've bowled South Africa out for 76.
We have.
And then we just kept batting and batting. And, the game's sort of going on. I'll be honest, I was I was at the Paynham Tavern with a few of the regulars there with Funeral Steve and the boys, and he came back. So it looks like Sutherland's going to knock off, and Sutherland gets out. So we made jokes that there's Elise Perry shotgunning in the rooms on champagne and all that. Yeah, I'll just stay here. You go out the field. I've still got the record.
Yes.
So, it was a bit humorous there. Look, at least South Africa made them fight a bit to win the game outright.
Yes.
In that way. So I'll give them that. But, it wasn't exactly a cliffhanger of the game.
No, you did mention Elise Perry there with 213 not out as a record. Annabelle Sutherland coming in at 210.
Yeah.
Someone that we know quite well here in South Australia, Karen Rolton at 209. Michelle Bozzard.
And Joanne Broadbent's up there as well.
Exactly, at 200 as well. Yeah. So Australian cricket in some very, very good
South
hands.
Australian representation there with Karen Rolton and Joe Broadbent. So,
absolutely, and that is certainly the positives that we can take from South Australian cricket at the moment. But Australia doing very, very well there. Obviously batting, like you said, 9 declared for 575, and South Africa bowled out in the first.
Of course, Darcy Brown took 5, and Talia McGrath took 2. So we took 7 of the 10 wickets for South Africa. So we were mucking around saying yet again South Australia carrying Australian cricket.
Absolutely.
I'll use that line.
And also great to see that the women are getting to play some tests. Obviously, going back, and we've talked about this on many occasions, 10 years ago, we never would have predicted, crowds the way they are, but the amount of women's cricket that is on. And like you said before, it's the fastest growing. Women's football is the fastest growing, and cricket is sort of right up there
as
as well.
And Bit of trivia as well on another one, and a really unusual one, that Elise Healy joins her husband Mitch Stark in that their highest test score is 99. So,
there you go. There's a great little stat we might have to put in the books there. So, great that they're getting to play, the occasional test match here and there, but, their draw card is the 2020s and the one-dayers.
Yeah.
Just on a bit of a side note for the cricket, you did talk about the Bazball in England just a minute ago. They got belted once again, England, giving us a little bit of fodder to work with, but it was a record loss as well. So,
but England just got to shut up. The more we get, the merrier, and we're going to enjoy chasing 600. What? You're dribbling. Nasser Hussain's come in and really got stuck in a ducket today.
Yep.
Virtually telling him, pull your head in. Because he's claiming that Indian players are learning from him. Well, Nasser Hussain's well and truly said, try the other way around.
Yes.
And that. Yeah.
Bairstow obviously calling for DRS on an absolute plum delivery, which was just farcical. But speaking of DRS, there was a decision that actually showed you that it was missing the stumps, and yet it was given out. So tennis has gone through this period of, the ball tracking and bits and pieces like that. Where does that leave cricket? Because it seems like every now and then we get these anomalies that really shouldn't be happening.
For mine, I'm not sold on DRS, and I think umpires have taken the more of a liberty now and are guessing, giving guys out. For mine, both Root and Crawley should have been given not out in England's second innings.
Yes.
For mine, that was a guess. Now, yes, it's an unwritten rule. It's not actually a rule of the game. There's nothing there which says batsman gets benefit of the doubt. It's just an unwritten thing. But it used to also be, once you were well and truly forward, benefit of the doubt applied. Now, they've shown, the stats-wise and all that the ball's only got to be moving under a millimetre and it's going to miss the stumps.
Yep.
Now, for mine, that was just a guess by Damasceno on both. Yeah, personally.
Crazy anyway. But, all right, we'll leave it there. We're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit of baseball, some tennis, the SANFL, the soccer, and Rachael Spawn Part 2.
Hi, I'm Mark Hardy, and you're listening to The Game on podcast.
All right, we continue on with baseball, mate. I know that the Adelaide Giants have finished, but there is a little bit of baseball going on here in Australia. But more importantly, there's a couple of players from Australia that have been signed to some MLB contracts, and Liam Hendriks is one who signed a 2-year deal with my Red Sox, so I'm pretty happy about that for sure.
Yeah, quite exciting.
Absolutely. All-star closer from Western Australia, Perth Heat product, Liam Hendriks is going to sign a 2-year contract worth about $10 million. He won the 2022 MLB Comeback Player of the Year award after recovering from stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So there's a really special story about that, and that is fantastic that he's going to get his opportunity at a major league club, and let's just hope that the Red Sox can utilise his skills.
Definitely.
All right, let's move on to tennis. Alex de Minaur and Jordan Thompson. Once again, we talked about them over the last couple of weeks, but they've actually moved on to some new career heights with Alex de Minaur squeezing inside the top 10 and Thompson reaching number 40, which is career highs for them.
Yeah, and of course, de Minaur did lose to
Yannick Sinner.
Yeah, the Sinner. He was definitely the Sinner, not the Saint.
Yes.
But at least it was probably a bit more competitive.
Well, it was. It was 7-5, 6-4. So obviously, Sinner being the Australian Open champ. The only thing that Alex de Minaur, and I totally agree with him a little bit here, in that he's got a 0-7 record against Sinner, and they are going to be playing against each other probably for the next 5, maybe 10 years against each other late in tournaments. So let's hope Alex can arrest that number and get a few wins back on the board. But Sinner's in absolutely amazing form at the moment.
Mind you, as a Redback supporter, I'd kill to be none for 7.
There you go. Just to finish this on tennis, mate, a bit of a fun fact that came across my desk is that no player inside the top 10 since 1973, which is when rankings actually officially started, that there's been no one-handed backhand players.
That's an indication that you've got to have a two-hander for the extra power, isn't it?
I mean, since 1973 they haven't had one. I think personally it's a little bit about that kids are picking up tennis rackets of full size a little bit earlier than what they normally would, and the only way they can do that and to hit the ball is to basically be a double-handed backhand. So You're right. It is something that is definitely changing. All right, let's move on to the SANFL, mate. Harry Grant gets his place in history on the Magarey Grove.
Yeah, and wrapped for his sponsor. James Dixon is a fanatical Centrals man.
Yes.
He's I will be honest, I think his business, his butcher business, has the best ads I've ever seen in anyone. He's very clever.
Mm-hmm.
J&S quality meats. He's hilarious. We might even shove one up. He's a good man. I've got a lot of time for him.
Now, I will preface, we're not sponsored by them, but look, we are looking for sponsors at the moment. So if anyone's listening that would like to just help us out, that'd be fantastic. But yes, I think you're right. Great supporter of the SANFL, great supporter of Central Districts. His ads are really good and his product is even better. Yeah. So can't go any further.
You might get a message after the show. So.
Absolutely. Malcolm, I want you to give us your top 5 for the SANFL Premiership race this year, because Phil, when he filled in a couple of weeks ago, and myself obviously sort of rattled off what we thought. Interested to hear your thoughts.
Glenelg easily the team to beat. I don't think there's any doubt about that whatsoever. I'll still go Sturt, Adelaide, my Nord bias, and I'll go Central still as well.
Okay. Phil was quite bullish on Central, so I'll be very, very interested to see how they go. Yep. North Adelaide's going to be the one that sort of is going to be around the mark.
Yep.
Nord and West Torrens as well, yeah. So it is a bit open at the moment, apart from probably the two that we all agree on, and that's probably Glenelg and Sturt at this stage. So, all right, just going back a couple of weeks to the Australian Day Honours, we should have made mention that the Sturt Football Club's Nick Swingler is awarded the OAM of Australia for his continued dedication to the Sturt Football Club. That is, I've met Nick, and he's a fantastic ambassador for football in general, but he loves Sturt.
Massively well-respected person around the SANFL, probably the leader to a lot of extent, and helps other clubs and other people. He's a really good bloke. You know, Lewis from Sturt's pretty open that he may have saved his life, etc. Massive respect, and he's a ripper, Nick, and he's a great man of the SANFL, and a fantastic person for Sturt Football Club.
Might see if we can chase him up and have him on as a real story for the SANFL, because obviously his involvement over the years with SANFL, he'd definitely have a few stories to share.
I've taken that on board, and I will do that.
No problem. And to finish us off on the SANFL, we'll go back to the SANFLW. Wins last week in the trial matches to Woodville, West Torrens, South Adelaide, West Adelaide, and Nord in some tight games too, which is good. Good to see.
Yes, Nord. Good to see Nord beating Glenelg. So it's something. I know it's only a trial game, but something we still can stir Stephen Patterson up.
Absolutely.
About that his girl in violet plays for Glenelg. So yes,
I'll leave that one to you as well, mate. All right, let's move on.
Former guest to the show.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to soccer. Adelaide United loses 2-1 to Sydney. United has put their season in jeopardy with the last two games that were very, very winnable.
Yeah, I think they're nearly. The fat lady, she's warming up. She's gargling. Will she be singing this weekend? We'll wait and see. Yeah.
Obviously, Adelaide United playing Western Sydney Wanderers this weekend at Hindmarsh Stadium. For all Adelaide United supporters, get there and support your team. They're by no way anywhere near completely out of the race, but they need to start putting together a few wins. And Western Sydney this week, and then Wellington Phoenix the following week, and then Melbourne Victory. So 3 very, very tough games coming up.
Fat lady's warming up.
I like it. All right, mate, let's take a very, very quick break. When we come back, Rachael Spawn Part 2.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break. Past players, past legends.
You're too tired to do. I think because it was, I was already 30 by the time I went to the WNBA. So maybe if I was 20.
20, I reckon you would have been amongst the votes, Rachael. Yeah.
I had to ask.
So Yeah, no, so it was, but it was just a wonderful experience. And yeah, I feel very, I don't know, grateful that I got to do that.
And then obviously then coming back to Adelaide Lightning, and then moving on to Sydney, and then, like you said, Athens, and you did speak about Jan Sterling there and being a very vital cog of that. But, you know, obviously you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser. What are some of the takeaways from that experience, obviously being the elder statesman of the team?
Yeah, that was, the generation gap was happening, that's for sure. I think I was nearly closer in age to Jan than my next teammate. Because I played through till I was 36, and most of my teammates were in their 20s by that point, because everyone else was retiring around me. But yeah, no, I think Jan was great there too, because she, as you got older, she would let you have an extra day off or an extra session off, because she knows that we're doing the work away from the program, but to also rest our bodies a little bit. So that was really appreciated. And yeah, and I guess you do get wiser as you get older, and you just rely on your basketball IQ and everything, and then you're just hoping that you're helping the young ones come through as well. I think that was, as you get older, I think that's one of the great pleasures is, having the rookies that come into the team and being their mentors.
How different was Sydney, though, as an experience compared to the other Olympics, Rach?
Well, the best thing is that your family can afford to come. So I had, mum, dad, all my siblings, so many friends and family. So having that support in the stadium was amazing, and just being able to see them in your days off. So that was huge. Everyone was in such a great mood in Sydney. I can't wait for Brisbane and people to experience it again. And just the home court advantage. We played in the Dome and then the Superdome, and just selling out and in front of such parochial crowds, you just can't beat that. And yeah, just the support that fellow Aussie athletes give to each other too. I think we do that so well compared to other nations. So, I love how Laurie Lawrence was gate crashing everything with athletes. I know they didn't let that happen in Rio. I think they nearly got arrested for getting in without tickets, but they were the good old days when you could do that. The security wasn't quite as strict. So, no, amazing memories.
I can give you a couple there. One of my best mates, Danny Hansen, found a media pass in a bin outside the MCG. No. He used it for everything. So this was about 3 years before the Olympics. So he used it every grand final. Anyone, he'd just say the grand final starting at 3.
Yep.
He'd walk in with a clipboard, 1 minute to go, and that, rush in. Opening ceremony, closing ceremony, Kathy Freeman's 400.
No way.
Basketball. And at that stage, another uni mate, David Gordon, was going out with Alison Peake. And so Gordo put Danny Hansen and Brett Dutchkin, a few of the boys' names, down on the door. So not only did he not pay for anything all week, go to every event virtually, he didn't pay for a drink either. It's just ridiculous.
Wow, that was very fortuitous. And
don't worry.
Most of it.
Involved with uni guys, they could manage to drink 8 days a week with having no money. Yeah, they're pretty incredible in a lot of ways. So, Rach, and then, so basketball, in terms of going on, and then the next Olympics, just go through and then coming towards and deciding what else you were then going to do, etc.
Yeah, so after Sydney, I got pregnant with my daughter Taya.
Yeah.
So I missed the 2002 World Cup. But had Taya and was determined to get back for Athens. So, yeah, worked my butt off. I was probably the fittest I'd ever been for Athens, actually. And I was very lucky that I had an amazing support network so that I could still train and play. Taya was away from her for 3 weeks when she was 1. And then, obviously the Olympic Games, I was away for 5 weeks. So I had my in-laws and my own mum and family looking after Taya. So, so Athens was different for me. I think I was much more relaxed because I was a mum. I was coming off the bench. My role was different. So I was probably in some ways the least stressful of my 3 Olympic Games, because the Olympics as an athlete is the pinnacle of your sport. But God, it's very stressful, the pressure. So as much as it's amazing and so great to be part of, it's also relief when it's over. But I didn't really feel that in Athens. I didn't feel that pressure. So, yeah, I just loved our campaign. Obviously we won silver. Yeah, and then it was, I wanted to have another baby, so I had my son in 2006, and yeah, and then just I guess along the way doing different roles, and the most rewarding I had was working for the Australian Melanoma
Yeah, I was going to
Research
bring that up.
Station
Yeah.
for 6 years, and because my grandma died from melanoma, and I basically wanted to educate my children better than mum and dad knew to educate me, because obviously growing up in the Mallee, we just tried to get burnt, so we'd go brown, peeled so many times.
Yeah.
And and we all did that in our generation because we didn't know any better, and so that was very rewarding. But I guess I always keep coming back to sport. So then I worked for ASADA, Australian Sports Anti-Doping Authority, for 3 years as a clean sport educator, which I loved. And then I worked for Olympics Unleashed, which was going out to schools and sharing your Olympic journey. And and then obviously the port job came up. So I'm still, I had to change allegiance because I had been a Crows ambassador for 21 years.
Yeah, that's
and,
right. I couldn't have done that.
Port.
Yeah, you've gone to the dark side. Jeez, Lord Voldemort. Yes. So
Just backing track a little bit there, ASADA. What obviously your role there and some of the intricacies that maybe not the average person would know about, because they are quite strict when it comes to a lot of these things, but a lot of people don't know. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, and I guess I wasn't the person watching them do a wee.
No.
Me. No. So no, it is an amazing world, and even as an athlete, I thought that I knew a lot about anti-doping, but there's so much more that you do need to know, and that's why they educate the athletes now. So I would travel all over Australia, present the hockey roos and the kookaburras, the seven rugby, and it was just rowing, swimming, all the different sports. So I loved that I got to do that, and I was still around the elite sporting environment. And I guess what's changed now is that because of social media and internet match fixing, betting, all that has to be talked about now. Because they will groom you.
Spot betting, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't, you just don't know that you're being played. And so it's just really making sure that the athletes are educated, and also, and you just see, and it's basically really about them not taking a banned substance in a supplement. That's the biggest one, because that's what breaks ASADA's heart, is when an athlete with no intention to cheat, took a supplement. They didn't know it had a banned substance because they're not well regulated, so they can put anything in there and it's not on the label. So that's where you're just wanting to make people accountable and realise whatever you put in your body, you're responsible for, and you can't blame anyone else.
I suppose that's where I was alluding to. Well, was there a little bit of a list or no goes for certain foods and drinks and so on and so on?
Absolutely.
That they had to look out for.
Yeah, there's an ASADA app. They're actually known as SIA now, Sport Integrity Australia. So there's an app. So if you take a supplement, you want to make sure it's batch tested, and you can look it up to see whether it is. And if it isn't, then you just don't take it. And at least with medicines or medications, they're well regulated. So, but obviously you can't take a cold and flu tablet with pseudoephedrine in it in competition. So these are things that, now I can do that. I couldn't before. So it was, a lot of people wouldn't know that, just that aren't an elite athlete. I thought, wow, they can't take that. So, it's just you have to keep very basic to what you can put into your body when you're an athlete.
Is it also a case of getting your own drinks and, not leaving it to chance? I'm trying to break it down into its simplest form, but, you might be out on a night out with friends and, you might want to have one or two bevies, and you really want to make sure that what you're getting is what you're getting.
Oh, absolutely. You have to be, really on your guard and alert. And like the elite athletes, when they travel and they stay in hotels, they will put their toothbrush in the safe so that no one can tamper with their toothbrush. That's how careful they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look, I can remember in that regard, as I said, I mentioned Alison Peake before, when Peaky first got that, she would watch the person pouring a drink and watch like a hawk. And then he's got to know a bit more. Rule book, can you watch? Do not take your eyes off. Concentrate something like chronic with my drink. And, yeah, so Alison was – and that was every drink. She never relaxed once in that way. And,
no,
you know,
you do. You
things
have
like
to be,
that. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really careful. And, yeah, and look, it's changed so much because when – we had to ring a hotline. You couldn't look on an app. You had to ring.
Yeah.
If you wanted to check if you could take something, you had to ring phone and call. And then you had to, they have what's called a whereabouts now, and you had to put on a piece of paper where you were going to be every day in case they come to test you. So things been made so much easier online. So it's a really good process now.
So rocking up at all hours of the day and night is common
they
practice.
Can do that. Yeah. 6 a.m. in the morning, come to your home. Wow. Yep, absolutely. The element of surprise is what they want.
Of course.
Okay, Rach, so some individual awards. Australian Basketball Hall of Fame, OAM, Australian Sport Hall of Fame. Go through, when you found out originally and just the sort, wow, and go through the experience for us.
Yeah, so I guess 2007 was for the Basketball Australia Hall of Fame. I'd been retired for 3 years, so that was the way that you could be eligible. You had to be retired for that period of time. So yeah, that meant a lot. Because being an Opal for me was such a privilege, and my God, it gave me an incredible life. I got to see the world. And then the OAM, that was 2015, and look, that was very unexpected. When you see, I don't know, it's hard when you're a sporting person because you have OAMs like people who are saving lives and researching and it's like, oh God, do I deserve to be there? And so I think that was very humbling for me, and that's very, very, very dear to my heart.
Fred Block, obviously, Fred Block's my hero, the late Fred Block, and he was really embarrassed by it, and sort of going, what's going on me, sort of thing, and but
I think
humbling, and I think as you get older, then I think you probably just appreciate it. You're not going, oh shit, I deserve that. No, you're just going, geez, I actually appreciate that, and it's a reward, and it's a something for the family to enjoy and all that as well, etc.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as athletes, we always look at ways that we have given back over the journey, and it's not all about what you've done for you, on the actual court or the whatever of playing basketball. It's what you've done in the community. I see as being the most important.
Yes.
And so for that, I'm very proud.
Look, that's one thing, Rachael. You ever contacted Rachael? Sports night, I ran a while back now, and ironic, a few other people who've been on the show before, and Flipper compared it, and there was Rick Neagle and Bix and Rowie. So, and it was quite funny because the photo, it's the six of us together, and ironically, Rachael is easily the tallest. So it looks quite funny with five guys and then the six.
I'm going to chime in here and
guys.
say the best looking as well, because there's no doubt about that.
I totally agree with that as well, mate.
Yeah.
Now, Rach, one thing, so you're now involved back with footy, and women's football is easily the fastest growing sport in the nation, and by a long way. And look, it's saving community clubs, country clubs, all of a sudden, girls' side, guys hang around, vice versa. We know how important that is. And at community level, they keep growing and growing. Like, I think Payneham have got 3 sides now. I think Morpheville Park are 4, and things like that. But what's the impact? Where are women's basketball and netball, the traditional sports, their numbers at? And I think Scholes from Port Adelaide is one where he's a classic example where maybe you might be involved there as well, because she is an Australian netballer as well. So surely there's a decision to come there and things like that. So how are the other sports coping with the competition factor virtually for their talent now?
Yeah, I don't know if it's draining as much as it was. I think when AFLW first started, They were getting players from any other code. You
Yeah.
just had to be athletic. They
Yes.
were trying beach volleyball, soccer, every sport. But now you have to come through the junior ranks to make it at AFLW level, which is as it should be. So I don't think they're draining the sports as much, but it's hard to compete. The other sports will find it hard to compete because it gets so much publicity. It's the young girls are seeing it. They're seeing that they can make a living from it. They hope to be professional by 2027.
Yeah.
So, and it is. Look, I grew up absolutely loving football, and I would have loved to have played.
Yeah.
Kieran is an older brother. I used to kick the footy all the time, but I never obviously saw. I didn't even know that women were playing it in the city, but at a much smaller level, and there was state footy back in the day. But yeah, I guess for me, I'm just rapt that there is another pathway for girls to go into a national competition.
Yep.
Because that's what you want. It's more physical activity, it's more opportunity to be involved in a team sport, and to be a elite athlete. So I'm very envious from a basketball point of view of the resources they have.
Yeah.
Coming from basketball to football, it's like, wow, I wish our sport had this. But because it's for women, I love it. I love that it is exploding, and we're having more facilities and conditions are better, and that's all changing. So in that sense, it's been great.
I think it's fantastic. And look, we acknowledge that it started the wrong way round, that it started at the top and then worked down. And of course, ideally at the bottom, but it had to go that way to pike the interest, and it's just incredible. Honestly, the problem now is the lack of grounds and lack of change rooms.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the numbers.
Right.
It's quite incredible that male teams are folding and female teams are beginning.
Yeah, that's right. That's so true.
It's a crazy stat, really.
Yeah.
And I guess we're all appreciative of that because, it wasn't meant to start till 2020. And thankfully, if they'd done that, it would have been COVID, so it wouldn't have got off the ground.
Yeah.
So thankfully, 2017, it did happen, and Erin Phillips, we got to see Erin play at her peak, and we wouldn't have wanted to be robbed of that because that was just,
Don't worry, I'm showing my age, Rachel. I saw Erin play as a junior, and John Cale makes the point. She's the best junior. He coached.
Male or female.
Yeah, he coached, and those of us who saw Erin play back then couldn't agree more.
Yeah, no, she was born to.
She was born to play football. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was just a natural game, and I think whatever Erin would have put her mind to, she would have been a champion at it. Basketball she did. I'm sure she would have played netball or whatever. She would have been the same. And to see her professionalism, obviously I played with her when she was 17 at Lightning, and I was 34. I was double her age, and I played with her for 2 years, and I was amazed at her professionalism back then. She was asking so many questions, and then to see over the journey and then come back to football, what her body, she just looks after her body so well. She's her best coach because she does the work away from the program. She knows what she has to do, and her commitment and diligence was amazing.
I know I'm involved with Nord, and with the Crows were playing the girls' team at Nord, and Erin had a fitness test on the Saturday morning, and it was my job to find out whether she'd passed the fitness test, and which found out she had. I then had to ring every radio station, email them, text in on numerous names to let people know that Erin was playing today, because we worked it out that it was worth at least an extra 1,000 people and about $3,000 to $5,000 in merchandise and food and drink sales if Erin was playing.
Yeah, well, that sounds like her final game for Port at Alberton, round 10 last year. It was amazing. It was so good, and we won. It was a perfect send off. She kicked 2 goals. Yeah, and I was like, well, there you go. That's serendipity for you. It was amazing.
Talking about a sliding doors moment, I mean, here we are talking football with a basketball. Your transition.
Oh, there's always a football.
Of course.
There's always a football in a spawn. Yes.
Obviously, you would never have dreamed that you'd be involved with football post your basketball career, and now being at Port Adelaide sounds like it's a nice fit.
Yeah, look, it is, and it's so true, because if you'd asked me even 4 years ago that I'd be at an AFLW club, I'd be like, really? So no, and also at Port, it's like wow. But yeah, no, I feel like I've been supporting Port for a long time. They're a great club. I love their culture, and it's been just fantastic. And obviously, except when I first started, they went in 2022. They lost their first 5 games, and it was not great being around the club, because everyone was like, "Oh God, keep my head down," and on tenterhooks. So it was so wonderful experiencing last year when they won 13 in a row. It's like, oh, how good is this?
Come on. You're going a bit overboard here, Rach. Come on. No need for that.
Pull it back.
Rach, I do remember you with the melanoma, and I admit I was trying to think. I knew there was a link, because I do remember your passion and talking to you at various times with that, and I knew you had a massive passion for melanoma. So yeah, you've expanded that now. So for that and all that now. The other thing, Rach was always known for one of the best tellers of jokes. And it is after 9 p.m, so a lot of the jokes now that we would qualify for, Rach.
I don't
but you
do
were,
that anymore,
yeah, you were
Malcolm.
brilliant. No, you were brilliant though, Rach. Yes, and that. So yes. Now, Rach, let's go through then. Yeah, back on the serious part. You would have been worried if I hadn't had dropped a sledge in that way, Rach. The highlight. If you've got to pick out of all the ridiculous number of things you've achieved, let's go 2 highlights and then your hardest opponents and best teammates played with as well.
Okay, so I can never go past the double overtime win in 1994, our first premiership, Clipsal Powerhouse against our main rivals, Melbourne Tigers. We were just exhausted, and thank God we won, because we've been so shattered. And yeah, that's my favourite WNBL win, I guess, of all time. And I think with the Opals, I'm actually going to go for obviously if the Olympics is obvious. I'm not going there.
Yep.
It was Oz 94. We played our preliminary rounds in Adelaide before we headed to Sydney, and it was so great. They were in Adelaide because so many people from Murrayville came down to watch. And anyway, we won our first game against Japan. We lost. We got belted by China by 20 in our second game, and we had to beat Italy by 13 points to advance to the top 8. If we didn't advance the top 8, it was going to be a financial disaster for Basketball Australia. And the pressure, I remember the pressure was insane, but we were up by 14 at halftime. We ended up winning by 21. And it was just the most amazing feeling. I'll never forget that. And, we went on to Sydney and we nearly made the gold medal game. We lost to China by 1 and we lost to USA by 5 to win a bronze. But I don't know, there was a little bit of changing of the guard, and we haven't lost our top 4 ranking since 1994. So I think that was sort of just the change of us being a world force and remaining there. So yeah, that's probably the highlight. So most difficult opponent, definitely Zhong Hai-Shi from China, 6'9", weighed 120 kilos, so 50 more kilos than me.
Yeah, wow.
And it was exhausting guarding her. We were the same age. I was the tallest in the Australian team at the time, so I always had to guard her. But yeah, respected her tremendously. And of course, I have to put Lauren Jackson in there as well. Yeah. Lisa Leslie from USA was exceptionally tough as well over my career, because we played USA so many times.
Yep.
And just amazing. Really pretty great to, I guess. I think what I love with basketball is that you have the opportunity to play WNBL, you have your Lightning team, and then you have your opponents, and then coming to play for Australia, you play with your opponents who become your teammates, who become your lifelong friends. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. All right, we'll get you out here on this one. There's no bigger honour in any sport to have your number retired in 2007. Let's just talk about that briefly, your feelings on that, and obviously it then being unretired in 2023.
Yeah, look, that was an honour when Lightning offered to do that, and it is a beautiful tradition that basketball do. But then it just came about late last year, that Jenny Bourlays, who I know very well, Izzy Bourlays' mum, she said, "Oh, Izzy's not happy with you because she can't wear number 14 because it's retired, because it was her number and she wore 5 for Lightning." And I went away with that, and I thought it got me thinking. And it's like, you're right. No one can wear 14. That's been a number. She's going to be a superstar. I've known her since a junior. I've watched her come through Forestville, and I would actually love to see number 14 running out in a Lightning uniform again.
Yeah.
So we ran it by Izzy to make sure she was comfortable with it too. And it was a really lovely moment when we did the presentation of the singlet, and, and we're just seeing what a superstar she is. She's went to the pre-Olympic tournament, and she got presented with number 20 over there because Mariana Tolo's got number 14. But, she has no fear. She's so composed beyond her years. She's 19 and she's going to be Opal for the next, 16 years. She's just so talented. And, so
she's got fair breeding too.
It was something that I didn't take lightly. I discussed with quite a few friends and family. I think I'm going to do this, and I do not regret it at all.
Hey, Rachael, privileged to have you on the show.
Absolutely. This has been one interview that I've been really looking forward to.
Yeah, basketball royalty. I know it's the cliche, but you truly get it. You get in terms of always helping people. Phone call to you and you're on board within 30 seconds, and always greatly appreciated. And, look forward to catching up too. Thanks, Rach.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the great chat, and love that you love women's sport. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Sports fanatics in general, Rach.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachael.
Okay, see ya.
We thank Rachael once again for her time last week in telling us not only about her starting, in country, and then obviously working her way through the basketball system, but ending up in the US and experiencing all of that was just fantastic. And, like you said, Rachael gets it. Yeah,
she does. As I said, charity show, you've only got to ask Rach, and bang, she's aboard. She's a ripper. Also, her champion herself, but you can hear in her voice her awe about Lauren Jackson as well. So, privileged to have Rach on board.
Absolutely a fantastic interview that I was looking forward to basically all week when we knew that we had her secured. And, thank her once again. So, thank you, Rachael.
Happy days.
All right, we kick off with happy birthday to a player that both you and I know very, very well, is Tommy Warhurst Jr.
We'll try and... Tommy's not easy to get on board to speak, but I will work on him because I did get a message one stage from his wife, Gia. I've always got to be careful because it's Gia Warhurst, Zia McIntosh. So you've got to be careful.
Gotcha.
And Gia was after the dates of Tommy's state games, and we had to work out numbers and which games they were. Did take a fair bit of delving and a fair bit of work, that one, but got there to get them framed, which Tommy didn't know about for his birthday. So I might give him a call on that one and remind him he does owe me one.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, happy birthday this week to Tommy Warhurst Jr. Obviously played for Norwood and the Adelaide Football Clubs. Warhurst had already played over 200 SANFL games when he was signed to the Adelaide for their debut season in 1991. Had previously been twice recruited by VFL clubs, but on each occasion decided to stay at Norwood. A 3-time South Australian representative, Warhurst, a member of Norwood's 1982 and 1984 premiership sides.
Yeah, and really a few vital times in that. The 84 against Centrals, which Bruce Winter points as the match-winning movement when he smashed through a centre square after a bounce and jammed it on the boot. Mark from Aish give off to David Payne for the goal to hit the front. Might have watched that once or twice.
High rotation.
And also his tackle on Bradley in the 84 grand final. The big guy caught the smooth-moving Port gun, and that was a big part of that as well. Tommy too, I will say, treated bizarrely by Adelaide. Played very well against Hawthorn.
Well, we'll talk about that now. You did talk about playing some big roles. He took part in Adelaide's first AFL game against Hawthorn at Football Park. We all know the result of that one there. But more importantly, he kept forward Dermot Brereton goalless in a convincing win for the club. The 28-year-old played again the following round against my Carlton Blues, but did not play any further or did not take any further appearances for the Adelaide Football Club.
I will say out of that it was ridiculous. He, not the first person and certainly was not the last to get beaten by Stephen Kernahan and got marked down from a comment he made. Throwaway comment. The news took up on it, got made into a headline. I will say the late, great Neil Curley was totally out of order and Adelaide were dumb enough to fall for that. And Tommy should have played a lot more than 2 games and leave it at that.
Definitely. Well, happy birthday to Tommy this week. And, hopefully we get to have a bit of a chat to him at some stage. This week in 1980, Ian Botham becomes the first man to score 100 in this case 114 off of 144 balls, and take 10 wickets, 13 for 106 in the same test against India.
Incredible player. Look, one of the few that he was the genuine all-rounder, that he would have played just as a top 6 batter, or he would have played just as a bowler.
Yes.
He was a superstar. Look, probably his fitness, so he lost a little bit of zip with the ball, where he probably put on a bit of weight. Didn't mind a beer or a wine or food, but and probably the main comment we can give Ian Botham is he should have been Australian.
Yep,
that's probably the best way.
There you go.
Biggest compliment we can give him.
Obviously, he helped England to a very unexpected win because I think at just doing a bit of the research, they were something like 4 for 57 and really in a bit of trouble. And he comes in and scores 114 off 144 balls and then backs it up bowling. So, impressive statistics. All right, we move on. Tennis in 2021, Australian Open women's tennis. Naomi Osaka of Japan wins her 4th major and 2nd Australian Open title. Jeez, it seems like longer than that.
Does I know? Yeah.
You know, she's gone off and had a few years off, had children, came back this year and played at the Australian Open. But, it just seems so long ago. But, she ends up beating Jennifer Brady 6-4, 6-3 in the Australian Open final. So
she should have beaten a member of the Brady bunch too. Fair enough.
Fair call. We move on to the Daytona 500 in 2016. The 58th Daytona 500. Danny Hamlin wins the closest finish race in history by 0.01 seconds from Martin Truex Jr.
It's incredible that they can go to that extent. So it's not a dead heat.
Yes.
It's quite ridiculous, really. Incredible.
0.01 of a second. That is just unbelievable. But, obviously the Daytona will be coming up pretty soon in America, so all the rev heads will be getting in tune for that. All right, and we finish off with the Olympics in the 24th Winter Olympic Games. Close in Beijing in China. Norway finishes with a record 16 gold medals.
It's a fair haul. It'd be interesting how many number of events overall there was. As we know, there's nowhere near as many events as the Summer Olympics.
Yes.
So, incredible, really.
But also per head of population too. That's the other thing, that we think of it from an Australian point of view. We've always batted above our average a little bit. It'd be very interesting to work out the statistics on that one as well.
Yeah.
So,
fair point.
All right, we move on. Let's scoot into the extra time big finish.
Extra time, big finish.
All right, we hate giving the 36ers a little bit of a clip, but we sort of have to in that their season finished on a bit of a whimper, and I think there'll be a lot that'll be happy to see the end of it.
It's inconsistent is probably as complimentary as we can go.
Now, the 36ers finish in a disappointing 9th spot, which is not quite what they would have liked to have sort of got to. Just looking at the ladder, they did have good opportunities in the last 3 or 4 weeks to probably put themselves up there for potential finals, but it wasn't to be, which leaves us with this weekend. We've got Tasmania v Illawarra and Sydney versus New Zealand in the play-in tournament.
Almost qualifying.
Qualifying, with Melbourne and Perth obviously automatically qualifying for the
eliminators, whatever,
So it's a slightly different format, but obviously The winner of Tasmania and Illawarra will go straight through. The loser of Sydney and New Zealand is out completely, and just the way that it is played. So we might touch base on that over the next couple of weeks as well. Speaking of basketball, the NBA, the All-Star game sets all kinds of new records where East beats West 211 to 186. Talk about a free-for-all.
Yeah, the defence there, that was the thing which kept the cars inside.
Yes.
They'd come. There certainly wasn't defence out on the court. Yeah.
They were hitting points from from half court and, 3 points from ridiculous areas. So, look, it is a bit of a fun, and it is an event that is more about showing off the talents of the best players going around. So, understandable. Something else that caught my eye, which is LeBron James hints at a possible retirement from the NBA. Not just yet, hasn't quite worked out when it's going to be, but whether he goes for a farewell year tour like Kobe did and like Michael Jordan did, or whether he just walks away is going to be an interesting talking point.
I reckon he could afford to sponsor the show too, just quietly. Yeah.
We'll put in a call to his people, to our people, to his people, and back and forth. I'm sure we can work something out. Speaking of the NBA, the Celtics still leading the Eastern Conference and the Timberwolves leading in the Western Conference. Celtics have a handy 6-game lead, so you'd have to say they are favourites at the moment to take the Eastern Conference, but finals do interesting things to a lot of teams. We move on to the NRL. The Vegas trip really hasn't started off all that well with players involved in a scuffle. The NRL just do this to themselves time and time again.
Yeah, don't help themselves. I admit, I did hear an interview, though, earlier today on SEN where they're saying that there's already been over 20,000 tickets sold, and that American and a lot of Europeans, and they'll be there, and they think, this is a 5-year deal.
Yes.
And they're saying that it'll be longer than the 5. They're already saying that. So at the moment they're happy. So he did probably play this down a little bit, but just saying, hey, how about respecting the game? It's your job. You're over here. It's your job. You got time for the Vegas trip.
Yep.
Later, whatever.
Yes.
Pull your head in and get on with it. And that says it all. But you dead right. Wouldn't be expect for plenty of things to happen yet for them all to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yep.
Let's wait and see.
It just seems to come up every time, and it's disappointing because they do have a good product. I mean, you look at State of Origin. Their local suburban clubs are still basically controlling a lot of what goes on in the NRL, and that probably leads me to my next point is, are they making the right move by playing in the US, or should they be concentrating on other Australian states first, such as Adelaide, and could the Rams be a team that could come back?
Depends on what sponsorship deals they've signed out of this, the TV rights and all that side of things.
Yep.
From the sound of it, it sounds like they've got a good deal, but let's wait and see on that one.
It is a big market in the US, and it is something a little bit different to the NFL football. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. All right, to finish us off, a couple of just general questions. North Melbourne talent looks like getting up to an 18-game ban.
Taron Thomas.
Expecting the decision sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Interesting one, isn't it? So it's for domestic violence and treatment of women in general. It's not just the one incident. It's
been ongoing.
There.
Yep.
I'm still a little bit mystified, though. I don't sort of get... So they're doing an investigation on that and that he is going to get a lengthy ban, yet they're waiting for the courts to decide what happens to Marlon Pickett. Mm-hmm. It seems to be a little bit hypocritical that we'll set the standards and rule on that, but we don't want to touch that one with a 5-foot pole. We'll let the courts decide on the other one. I sort of don't. I don't really get that.
No, that's fair call.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd add it to the run sheet because it is a controversial decision as far as that goes. Yeah,
it's totally contradictory of each other.
That's what I'm saying.
The way they're handling it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to finish us off, mate, something a little bit cheeky today. An Olympian possibly stood down over a cheeky stunt. It was all a bit of fun, really, at the end of the day, and I hate to say it, but sometimes we're a little bit too politically correct.
Yes, we are, and look, let's just say I think common sense will happen there in the end, but
We're talking about the horse rider who was wearing the mankini. It was a bit of fun. Look, come on, let's bring a bit of levity to the situation, and if and he's getting good publicity for the sport as well as the Olympic Games coming up, and that's something that we've got to add to the run sheet over the next couple of weeks is the Olympics.
COMMON, second word, SENSE. Let's hope that happens, and we'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. All right, mate, we're going to leave the good, the bad, the ugly this week because I reckon we've covered some of that.
I think I've teed off enough.
You have. Mate, we thank Rachael again for her time the last couple of weeks. I thank you once again, and as per usual, we promise to do better.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at SportscastSA. We'll see you next time on Game On.